Cheap guns aren't rare, sketchy unicorns hiding in back alleys. They're usually regular, mass-produced firearms that lose value for boring, practical reasons. This is Tommy from the Armory, and today I'm cutting through the noise. We're talking about why some guns get dirt cheap, and why that freaks out people who don't understand the market. Before we dive in, do me a solid, smash that subscribe, tap the bell, hit all the dang buttons down there. You don't have to, but it keeps this train rolling, and it lets me crank out more of this wild gun talk for y'all. All right, enough of that. Let's get back to it. When someone says dirt cheap 9mm, the High Point C9 is usually the first name that pops up. And yeah, it earns that reputation. I've handled enough of them to tell you this. It's not magic. It's not some mystery box. It's a straight blowback pistol, fixed barrel, built around the simplest way to make a 9mm go bang consistently for the least money possible. Here's the deal. Blowback in 9mm needs mass, because the slide is doing work a lock breech would normally handle. That's why the C9 wears that huge zinc aluminum alloy slide and that stout recoil spring. The upside, fewer moving parts, and a barrel that doesn't tilt. That can help practical accuracy at typical defensive distances. The downside, it feels chunky, and recoil can feel snappy and abrupt, compared to a modern lock breech compact. Capacity is old school too. Usually an 8-round single-stack magazine, so nobody's confusing it with a modern high-cap carry piece. Most of the High Point is unreliable talk. That's internet groupthink mixed with bad setups. These guns often run fine on full-power ball ammo, but some examples get picky with certain hollow points, especially if the magazine is worn, feed lips are tweaked, or the gun is bone dry. And blowback pistols don't tolerate limp wristing like people think. A loose grip can turn a marginal mag into a jam factory when folks actually keep it cleaned, lightly lubed, and use decent mags. Plenty of C9s keep chugging along, even if the trigger feels mushy, and the slide feels like it was carved out of a truck part. It stays cheap because it's heavy to ship, ugly to resell, and nobody's flexing one on range day. That same simple, works, costs less mindset shows up again once we talk about budget pump shotguns. The Mossberg Maverick 88 is what happens when a company takes a proven pump design and strips it down to what actually matters. I've always looked at it like this. It's the work truck version of a Mossberg 500. Same general layout, same pump shotgun logic, just built to hit a price tag regular people can stomach. Mechanically, you're still getting a real pump, with dual action bars, so the foreign doesn't bind like some bargain pumps do. The receiver is aluminum alloy, like the 500, and lockup happens at the bolt into the barrel extension, so you're not relying on the receiver to take that beating. Most of them ship as 5+1 capacity in 12 gauge, and the security versions commonly come in 18.5 inch, with longer mag options depending on the exact setup. It's simple, serviceable, and boring in the best way. The cheap part comes from choices you notice fast. The safety is a cross bolt behind the trigger instead of the Mossberg Tang safety, and the finish and furniture are basic. A lot of these are built with a mix of US assembly and Mexican-made components. That keeps costs down without turning it into a mystery gun. Parts compatibility is decent in the Mossberg ecosystem, but it's not one-to-one with every 500 part. Especially once you start talking barrels and magazine tube setups. Where the Maverick makes sense is the same place every cheap gun makes sense. It's common, it's proven, and the used market is flooded with them. That flooded with them theme keeps showing up once we get into budget 22 cal rifles, like the Rossi RS22. The Rossi RS22 sits in that zone where 22 cal rifles get so common, the market treats them like appliances. Every time I walk into a shop, there's some budget semi-auto rimfire on the rack, because the 22 long rifle is the default cartridge for training, plinking, and keep it behind the truck seat duty for a lot of folks. Mechanically, the RS22 is straight blowback. That's about as simple as it gets in rimfire land. Most packages ship with an 18-inch barrel, a detachable 10-round magazine, and the whole thing stays light because it runs a polymer stock and keeps the metal where it needs to be. Many are set up with a rail or scope mounting option, because nobody wants to fight tiny irons forever, especially when 22 cal is all about cheap reps. The part people miss is ammo sensitivity. Rimfire ignition is less consistent than centerfire, And bulk pack ammo varies. So the same rifle can run smooth on one load and get cranky on another. When mine starts acting up, the fix is usually boring. Clean the chamber, scrub the feed area, and check that the magazine lips aren't bent. Weak ejection and failures to feed are often just carbon and bullet lube buildup. The RS22 stays dirt cheap because there are tons of alternatives and tons of used ones floating around. Not because it's disposable. That same simple, old-school energy shows up when you step over to a single-action .22 revolver. Like the next gun on my list, Heritage Rough Rider. Single-action .22 revolvers stay cheap because the design is simple, and the job is basic. Slow down, line up sights, press the trigger, repeat. The Heritage Rough Rider lives right in that lane. And yeah, it feels old school on purpose. Loading gate on the side, ejector rod for kicking empties out one by one, and a cylinder you index as you go. No speed, no flex, just reps. What makes the Rough Rider a budget king is how it's built. Most of them use an aluminum alloy frame with a steel barrel and a steel cylinder. That keeps weight down, and it keeps cost down. Many models are 6-shot and .22 long rifle, and a lot of the popular ones are convertible. You get an extra .22 WMR cylinder, which is honestly a solid value if you actually plan to shoot Magnum. Sight setups are usually basic and fixed, though some versions do come with adjustable sights depending on the exact trim. The safety setup is also why this one gets talked about so much. Plenty of Rough Riders include a manual thumb safety. That's not normal on classic single-action revolvers. And it's there because this gun gets bought by first-timers. And plinkers, who want an extra layer of don't do something dumb. Trigger feel is typically crisp enough for slow fire, and accuracy is usually more about ammo choice and how clean the cylinder face and forcing cones stay after a long-range day. That whole cheap but usable theme is going to matter when the list shifts from rimfire fun to budget carry guns, because that's where compromises start getting personal. Carry gun cheap is where people get weird fast, and the SCCY CPX2 lives right in that bargain corner. This is a compact 9mm built around a hammer-fire double-action-only system, so every trigger press is a long pull that cocks and releases the hammer. That design keeps the internals simple, and it keeps the price low. But yeah, the trigger feel is usually the first complaint, because it's long, and it's on the heavier side. Mechanically, it's a pretty standard modern setup. Polymer frame, locked breech, tilting barrel action, and it feeds from a double-stack magazine that's typically 10 rounds. Size-wise, it's in that subcompact class. Short barrel, meant to be carried more than it's meant to be loved at the range. Recoil is manageable, but with the short grip and lightweight frame, it can get a little snappy depending on the ammo. Running decent brass-cased ball for break-in tends to smooth out a lot of the early "my gun hates life" complaints. The reason it stays dirt cheap is reputation and ergonomics. Early runs had enough reports of feeding and extraction issues that the brand caught a permanent side-eye, even though later production improved. Add the fact the trigger isn't everyone's idea of a good time. The finish is basic, the sights are nothing fancy, and resale value stays in the basement. The upside is SCCY has been known for a strong warranty, so a lot of owners lean on that when something acts up. That whole budget carry pistol lane gets a lot more interesting when the badge on the slide has real mainstream weight, which is why the Ruger EC9S ends up surprising people. The Ruger EC9S is one of those pistols that ends up cheap because it got shoved into the shadow of newer microcompacts. Not because it's some off-brand gamble. Mine has always felt like Ruger took a proven slim 9mm layout and shaved cost in spots that don't change whether the gun cycles or not. That's why you'll see these priced low, especially used, even though the name on the slide carries real weight. Specs-wise, you're talking a single-stack striker-fired 9mm, locked breech, tilting barrel, barrel right around the 3-inch range, and a magazine that's typically 7 rounds. It's thin, it's light, built for carry, so the grip is short, and the gun moves more in your hands than a compact double stack. Recoil is still very manageable with standard pressure, 115 or 124 grain loads. But the snappiness is real if you start pushing hotter ammo all day. The trigger is serviceable, not match grade. and the small size makes grip consistency matter. The budget part shows up in the features. Many EC9S setups ship with basic sights and finishes, and some versions lean on simpler sight cuts compared to pricier siblings. So swapping sights can be more annoying than it should be. Controls are straightforward, and the gun generally likes being kept clean and lightly lubed, because slim carry guns with tight slides are not allergic to friction. Once you see how a mainstream carry pistol ends up in the bargain bin just from market pressure, it's easy to understand why budget bolt rifles like the next gun get dumped cheaply in huge numbers too. The Savage Axis is the budget bolt gun that keeps showing up on sale racks like it pays rent there. I've seen it most often as a package rifle, with a basic scope already mounted, which is basically the big box store recipe for moving a ton of units fast. When a rifle exists in huge numbers, and half of them get bought for one hunting season, the used market gets stacked, and prices sink hard. Mechanically, it's simple, and it works. You're looking at a push-feed bolt, dual locking lugs, a 90-degree bolt lift, and Savage's barrel nut-style manufacturing. That helps keep headspace consistent without making the rifle expensive to build. Most Axis rifles ship with a lightweight sporter barrel and a synthetic stock that feels like a pool noodle if you torque it. But the action and barrel are usually the real story anyway. The original Axis triggers were often heavy, and the Axis 2 variants are known for using Savage's adjustable SCCY trigger. That's a legit upgrade if you care about clean breaks. Accuracy is why people keep buying them. With decent ammo and a halfway decent rest, plenty of Axis rifles will hold hunting acceptable groups all day, and some will do better than they have any business doing for the money. The scope in those bundle kits is usually the weakest link, so when somebody complains the rifle won't shoot, I'm immediately side-eyeing the glass and mounts first. After walking through a cheap pistol, a cheap shotgun, and a cheap rimfire, the Axis kind of ties the whole list together. Common, functional, priced low because the market is flooded, not because it's cursed.